He watched her slip the candy back onto the shelf, her daughter's tiny hand still reaching, her smile trembling. Something in his chest cracked open, and for the first time in years, he couldn't look away. The city was alive that evening, its skyline glowing like a necklace of light against the dusk. Inside the glass tower that bore his name, Daniel Kingsley stood before floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the view that millions envied but left him hollow. His reflection in the glass stared back. Crisp suit, gold cufflinks, every hair in place. A man who had everything, or so the world believed. He lifted his glass of bourbon, but the warmth did nothing to quiet the gnawing in his chest. Tonight was no different from any other. Meetings filled his calendar, assistants fed him updates, and investors applauded his latest acquisition. Yet when the applause faded, when the doors closed, silence swallowed him whole. Daniel wasn't lonely in the way the tabloids imagined. Women, acquaintances, admirers, they were plentiful. What he lacked was something more corrosive, meaning. Every success seemed like another brick in a wall between himself and the boy he used to be, the one who once tugged on his mother's sleeve in a grocery store, asking for candy they couldn't afford. He shoved the memory away as he turned back to his empty penthouse. Chrome, glass, leather, everything spotless, everything lifeless. It struck him that even his home seemed afraid to be touched. Across the city, in a small apartment that smelled faintly of lavender detergent and reheated pasta, Emily Carter bent over her kitchen table. Bills lay scattered across its surface, a battlefield of red stamps and deadlines. Her daughter Lily, 6 years old with curls bouncing around her face, was coloring quietly on the floor. Emily rubbed her temples and exhaled. Life had not been kind since Lily's father walked out before she was even born. Every dollar stretched thin, every day a marathon between her waitress job at the diner and cleaning offices at night. But when Lily looked up with that gap-toothed grin, Emily's heart softened. "Mommy, look," the little girl said proudly, holding up a picture of a son with smiling faces. Emily crouched beside her and kissed her forehead. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Just like you." Her daughter's laughter filled the apartment, chasing away shadows of worry. For a moment, Emily had long since accepted that her life would be a fight. What mattered was that Lily never felt unloved, never felt abandoned. That night, when Emily tucked her daughter into bed, she whispered a quiet prayer. "Just let me be enough for her. Even if I fail in everything else, let her know she is loved." The next day dawned crisp and bright. Daniel found himself restless, pacing his office instead of diving into his usual spreadsheets. Something tugged at him, something that made him decline dinner with his board. Instead, he told his driver to take him anywhere but here. Meanwhile, Emily's paycheck from the diner was gone before she even left the building. Rent, utilities, groceries. She took Lily by the hand and headed toward the neighborhood store. Just a few essentials: bread, milk, a bag of apples. She had $18 left until next payday. The store smelled of fresh bread and coffee, aisles buzzing with people filling carts without a second thought. Emily steered Lily gently past the toy section, past the sweets. But children notice what adults hope they won't. "Mommy, can I have this one?" Lily held up a shiny wrapped candy bar, her eyes wide with innocent hope. Emily's heart pinched. She picked it up, turned it over in her hand, and for a moment considered it. But $2.49 wasn't just candy. It was bus fare or a gallon of milk or eggs for breakfast. She crouched down, smiling softly though her chest ached. "Sweetheart, not today." Lily's lips quivered, but she nodded bravely. "Okay, Mommy." Emily placed the candy back on the shelf. And that was the moment. Daniel had wandered into the same store. No driver, no assistance. Just a man in an expensive coat trying to remember what it felt like to be human. He saw it all. The hesitation in Emily's hand, the brightness in Lily's eyes dimming, the quiet dignity with which the mother placed the candy back. Something twisted inside him. A memory rose. His own mother doing the same thing decades ago, whispering apologies he hadn't understood then, but understood too well now. The hum of the store faded. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the mother and daughter, from the way pride and love clung to her like armor, even as she walked away with nothing more than bread and milk in her basket. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something crack the stone around his heart. He didn't know it yet, but this small moment, a piece of candy returned to a shelf, was about to change everything. If you were Daniel, watching a struggling mom sacrifice like that, would you step in or stay silent out of respect for her pride? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Daniel lingered by the shelf far longer than he intended, pretending to study the display of cereal boxes while his eyes followed the mother and daughter. He told himself it was none of his business, yet his pulse betrayed him, steady but forceful, like a drum echoing in his ribs. The girl clung to her mother's hand, still sneaking glances at the candy. No tears, no tantrum, just a small sigh and the kind of resignation a child shouldn't know. Daniel's throat tightened. Why does this matter to me? He thought, shifting uncomfortably. He could buy the whole store without blinking. Yet here he was, shaken to the core by a candy bar. Emily kept her chin high as she reached for a loaf of bread. Her knuckles whitened against the basket's handle. Pride demanded she stay composed. But inside, shame gnawed at her, the kind that comes not from greed, but from the inability to give your child something so small. She felt eyes on her. Turning slightly, she noticed the tall man in the dark overcoat by the cereal aisle. Wealth practically dripped from him, the tailored cut of his jacket, the gleam of his watch. Their gazes met for the briefest moment. Her chest flamed. He saw. He knows. Emily quickly looked away, cheeks burning, as if the entire store were whispering about her. Lily tugged her arm gently. Mommy, are you okay? Emily forced a smile. Yes, baby. Let's finish up. Daniel's fingers curled against his side. He wanted to speak, to tell her he understood, to somehow erase the humiliation he had seen flicker in her eyes. But he remained silent. What right did he have to intrude? He was a stranger. Worse, he was a billionaire, a man whose life was so far removed from hers that any gesture might seem like pity. Yet silence cut deeper than he expected. His mother's face rose in memory, a woman in a faded coat, whispering apologies to her son as she put back a box of cookies. He remembered the sting of wanting and the confusion of watching her hide tears she thought he didn't notice. He couldn't breathe. He turned away abruptly, heart hammering, and headed toward the checkout. Emily paid for her groceries, counting bills with practiced precision. The cashier, distracted, barely noticed the trembling in her hands. Lily held the bag of apples proudly, as though it were treasure. Thank you, ma'am. Have a good day, Emily said softly, voice steady despite the storm inside. Daniel's turn came next. He placed a bottle of water on the belt, something simple, an excuse to stand in line behind them. His eyes caught Lily's curls bouncing as she skipped toward the exit. He almost smiled, but then he saw Emily hesitate at the door, shoulders tightening as she glanced back. Their eyes locked again. This time, neither looked away. Emily's mind raced. Why was he watching them? Was it judgment? Pity? Curiosity? She hated all of it. Life had already stripped her of so much. She refused to be someone's charity case or a fleeting anecdote for a stranger's dinner party. Still, something about the man's expression disarmed her. Not smug, not condescending. Troubled. Haunted even. She couldn't name it. But it unsettled her enough that she pulled Lily closer and walked faster into the crisp evening air. Daniel followed minutes later, bottle in hand, the weight of silence pressing on him. He spotted them at the bus stop across the street. Emily balancing groceries on one hip, Lily leaning against her with a tired yawn. He could have turned away. Should have. But his feet carried him toward them, as though the moment demanded something from him he wasn't yet ready to name. The bus rumbled to a stop, brakes hissing. Emily guided Lily aboard, her basket carefully tucked at her feet. Through the window, she caught one last glimpse of the stranger, standing motionless on the sidewalk, staring as though she were a riddle he desperately needed to solve. The bus pulled away, leaving Daniel rooted in place, bottle clutched in his hand like an anchor. He felt absurd. He didn't know her name, her story, nothing. And yet, as the bus disappeared into the stream of headlights, he felt a loss sharper than he could explain. That night, Daniel sat alone in his penthouse, the city glittering beneath him. He turned the unopened water bottle in his hands, replaying the scene over and over. The candy bar, the look in the mother's eyes, the quiet bravery of the child. For the first time in years, business reports lay untouched on his desk. His empire could wait. All he could think about was her. And somewhere across the city, Emily tucked Lily into bed. She kissed her forehead, smoothing curls back gently. "Good night, my love," she whispered, though her mind was still tangled with the memory of the stranger's gaze. She told herself it didn't matter. She would never see him again. But life had other plans. Do you believe fate puts people in our path for a reason? Or are moments like this just coincidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. The next morning, his desk was covered in quarterly reports and proposals for acquisitions worth billions. His board members awaited his signature. His assistant hovered with reminders. And yet, his pen lingered above the paper without moving. Instead of focusing on mergers and profits, his mind replayed the soft curve of a child's hand letting go of candy. He shook his head sharply, forcing his attention back to the spreadsheets. Enough. It was one moment. Let it go. But the numbers blurred. His chest felt heavy. "Mr. Kingsley," his assistant asked carefully, breaking the silence. "Is something wrong?" "No." Daniel snapped, more harshly than intended. He rubbed his temple, sighing. "Cancel my afternoon meetings. I need quiet." Across the city, Emily was on her second shift, wiping down the last of the diner's tables as the neon lights buzzed overhead. The smell of fried food clung to her apron. She glanced at the clock. 10:47 p.m. If she hurried, she'd catch the bus home and still manage a few hours of sleep before waking Lily for school. She shoved her rag into the bucket, back aching, when one of her coworkers teased, "You looked flustered yesterday at the store, Em. Hot guy checking you out." Emily froze. Heat rose in her cheeks. Had it been that obvious? She forced a laugh. More like some rich snob wondering if I could afford soap. Nothing worth talking about. But alone at the bus stop later, she couldn't shake the memory of his eyes. Sad, searching, not mocking. Still, she wrapped her coat tighter. She didn't have room for men, especially strangers with fortunes and pity in their pockets. Days passed. Daniel poured himself into work with ruthless discipline, trying to bury the unease. Charity galas, business dinners, endless deals. He attended them all, smiling on autopilot. Yet, every empty toast and hollow laugh made him feel more estranged from himself. One evening, he found himself driving past neighborhoods his wealth had long since removed him from. The streets were narrower, the houses smaller, but life spilled from them. Children chasing balls, families chatting on stoops. It was messy, noisy, real. He parked for a long time, watching. He couldn't explain what he was looking for, only that something in him resisted returning to his skyscraper prison. Emily, meanwhile, grew more restless. Bills stacked higher, the landlord knocked more often, and the weight of being everything for Lily pressed down harder each day. One night, as she folded laundry in their tiny living room, Lily asked innocently, "Mommy, will we ever live in a big house?" Emily froze, clutching a small t-shirt. She smiled, but it wavered. "Maybe someday, sweetheart. But remember, home isn't about size. It's about love." Lily beamed and returned to her crayons. Emily turned away, blinking back tears. Love doesn't pay rent, she thought bitterly. Daniel's resistance began to fracture when a memory slipped through unbidden. He had been 10. His mother, exhausted after a double shift, had counted coins at the register. She had put back cookies, milk, even a small toy he had begged for. He hadn't understood then why her eyes brimmed with tears. Now, decades later, he did. The memory bled into the present, into the image of Emily's trembling smile, Lily's small nod. He pressed his fists against his desk, frustration boiling. Why did this woman haunt him? At the same time, Emily wrestled with her own resistance. She caught herself thinking of him again, his coat, his expression, the odd sadness in his eyes. Anger surged. "Stop it, Emily. You don't have time for fairy tales. Rich men don't look twice at women like you. And if they do, it's never for the right reasons." Yet beneath her denial was curiosity she couldn't kill. Who was he? Why did his gaze feel less like judgment and more like recognition? Daniel's breaking point came one evening at yet another fundraiser. Champagne glasses clinked, laughter filled the grand hall, and the mayor congratulated him on a massive donation. Cameras flashed as he posed beside city officials. But as the applause roared, all he saw was Lily's hand reaching for candy she never got. The hollowness struck like a punch. He excused himself mid-speech, ignoring the startled whispers, and walked out into the night air. For the first time in years, he didn't care what anyone thought. Emily's resistance cracked in her own way. Late one night, after paying bills, she found herself staring at the candy shelf in the corner store. She almost reached for one, just to surprise Lily, but her hand froze. Instead, she bought milk and bread again, guilt and longing mixing like poison in her chest. As she walked home, her thoughts betrayed her. She remembered the stranger's haunted eyes, the way he had looked at her, as if he carried a wound too. She hated that she wondered about him. She shook her head firmly. No, he's not part of our lives. He can't be. And so both lived in denial. Daniel surrounded by wealth, pretending not to crave connection. Emily surrounded by love, pretending she didn't need help. Two hearts resisting, even as fate slowly tightened its grip around them. Why do you think people resist the very connections that could heal them? Fear of rejection, pride, or something else? Share your perspective in the comments. It was raining the night their worlds collided again. Sheets of water blurred the sidewalks, reflections of neon lights rippling in puddles. Emily tugged Lily close under a fraying umbrella, rushing toward the bus stop after a late shift. Her shoes squelched with every step, grocery bag tucked under her arm. The storm had arrived without warning, and the streets were half flooded. Lily's small voice piped up through the downpour. "Mommy, my socks are wet." "I know, baby. We'll be home soon," Emily promised, brushing curls from her daughter's face as they reached the crowded stop. Dozens of people huddled there, drenched and restless, waiting for a bus that was already 30 minutes late. Emily bit her lip. Lily shivered, hugging her small backpack. Emily pulled her tighter, shielding her as best she could. Meanwhile, Daniel's town car crawled through the storm on the opposite street. He sat in the back seat, staring out the rain-smeared window. He had left another fundraiser early, unable to endure more shallow conversations. The storm seemed to echo the turmoil inside him. Loud, restless, impossible to ignore. Through the glass, he spotted the bus stop. Dozens of figures hunched under umbrellas, but his gaze landed instantly on her. The woman from the store, clutching her daughter like a shield against the world. Daniel leaned forward. "Pull over." His driver hesitated. "Sir." "Now." The car eased to the curb. Daniel opened the door before the driver could protest, rain pelting his tailored suit as he stepped into the storm. His heart hammered with the absurdity of it all, but his feet moved anyway, toward her. Emily looked up as the crowd shifted. Her stomach dropped. There he was, the same man, the stranger with haunted eyes. His dark coat was already drenched, yet he seemed oblivious to the rain. She stiffened, clutching Lily's hand tighter. Why is he here? Why now? Daniel stopped a few feet away, unsure how to bridge the chasm between them. "You'll catch cold," he said, voice low but steady. Emily blinked, defensive instinct flaring. "We'll be fine." His eyes flicked to Lily, who shivered against her side. Something in his chest clenched. "Please, let me give you a ride." Her back went rigid. "No, thank you. We don't take rides from strangers." "I'm not." He stopped, realizing how that sounded. "I don't mean harm. It's pouring. The buses might not even come." Emily's jaw tightened. Pride surged like armor. "We'll wait." The bus didn't come. Minutes dragged into half an hour. The storm only worsened, wind cutting through their umbrellas like knives. Lily coughed softly, burying her face in Emily's coat. Daniel stood silently nearby, soaked but unmoving, unwilling to leave them. Every instinct told him to press harder, but her posture warned him she'd bolt if he did. Instead, he simply stayed, sharing the miserable weight, as though his presence alone could prove sincerity. Finally, another voice from the crowd muttered, "They've probably canceled service. Storm's too bad." Emily's heart sank. Lily's lips were blue with cold. She couldn't risk it anymore. She looked up at him reluctantly. "You still have that car?" His heart skipped. "Yes." Her eyes narrowed. "One ride. That's all." He nodded quickly, almost reverently. "Of course." Inside the warmth of the sleek car, Emily sat rigidly, groceries on her lap, Lily curled against her side. She couldn't stop glancing around at the leather seats, the faint scent of cedar and expensive polish. It felt like another universe. Daniel sat opposite, drenched but unconcerned. He watched quietly as Lily's shivers eased. The child peeked at him with curious eyes, and to his surprise, offered a small, sleepy smile. "Thank you." Lily whispered. Daniel's throat tightened. You're welcome. Emily shot him a warning look, but she didn't speak. Her pride screamed at her, but gratitude flickered beneath it. She hated the vulnerability clawing at her chest. The car rolled through rain-slick streets. Daniel asked softly, "Where should we drop you?" Emily hesitated, then gave the address. She knew it was pointless to hide. If he wanted to judge her life, he would see soon enough. As the car slowed near her modest building, embarrassment gnawed at her. The peeling paint, the flickering hallway light, the cracked steps, it all seemed magnified under his gaze. She forced her voice steady. "This is fine. Thank you." Daniel hesitated, wanted to say more, to ask her name, to explain why he couldn't stop thinking about her. But the words caught in his throat. Emily opened the door quickly, guiding Lily out. She turned back for a split second, meeting his eyes. Rain streaked down her face like tears. "We don't owe you anything." Her voice wasn't cruel. It was protective, like a warning. Then she shut the door. Daniel sat frozen as the car pulled away. Her words echoed in his head. "We don't owe you anything." He knew she was right, and yet something inside him rebelled. He didn't want her to owe him. He wanted her to see him. Not the billionaire, not the stranger, but the man who had once stood in her daughter's shoes. As the taillights of his car faded into the storm, Emily climbed the creaking stairs to her apartment. Lily clutched her hand, murmuring sleepily, "Mommy, he was nice." Emily swallowed hard. "Don't get attached, baby. Nice doesn't last." But deep inside, her certainty wavered. Would you have accepted Daniel's offer in Emily's place? Or would pride and caution have kept you waiting in the rain? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious what you'd do. The rainstorm passed, but its memory lingered. For Emily, the ride home sat heavy in her chest. She replayed every moment in the car. The warmth of the leather, the childlike gratitude in Lily's voice, and the stranger's eyes watching them with something that looked frighteningly like understanding. For Daniel, it was worse. He spent nights staring out the glass walls of his penthouse, replaying her last words. "We don't owe you anything." She was right, yet the phrase stung, not because it pushed him away, but because it echoed his deepest fear, that without his wealth, he was nothing worth keeping. Days later, their paths crossed again, not by coincidence this time. Daniel had quietly instructed his assistant to fund repairs in the neighborhood where Emily lived. A new swing set appeared at Lily's school playground. Streetlights were fixed. Groceries at the corner stores suddenly seemed cheaper. He told himself it wasn't about her. But when he saw her again, this time at the playground after a shift, he knew he had been lying to himself. Emily sat on a worn bench, sipping coffee from paper cup, watching Lily play. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back, uniform wrinkled. Yet she smiled softly at her daughter's laughter. Daniel approached, heart pounding like a teenager's. She noticed him instantly. Her smile vanished. "You." He lifted his hand slightly, a gesture of peace. "I'm not here to bother you. I just wanted to make sure you and your daughter got home safe the other night." Her jaw clenched. "We did. We're fine. You didn't need to check." "I know," he admitted, "but I wanted to." The silence between them was sharp, filled with things unsaid. Daniel's eyes flicked toward Lily, who was swinging high, curls bouncing in the wind. His throat tightened with memory. "She reminds me of me," he murmured. Emily frowned. "Excuse me." He swallowed hard, meeting her gaze. "When I was her age, I used to ask my mother for candy at the store. She put it back every time. I never understood why. Until later. Watching you and your daughter, it brought it all back." Emily's defenses faltered for a moment. There was no pity in his voice, only pain. Still, she folded her arms across her chest. "So what? You grew up poor, and now you're rich. Good for you." Daniel almost smiled at her bluntness. "Not good for me. Money doesn't erase what it felt like to be small and want something simple, or what it felt like to watch my mother cry when she thought I wasn't looking." Her breath caught, though she tried to mask it. Lily's laughter carried through the air, filling the space between them. Emily's voice softened despite herself. "Her father left before she was born. Haven't heard from him since. I've been doing this alone. Every bill, every meal, every night shift." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "I don't need your sympathy, but I guess you should know why I don't take handouts." Daniel's chest ached. "It's not sympathy." He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. It's recognition. I know what it means to fight with nothing but pride left. And I know how heavy it feels. Emily blinked, caught off guard by the rawness in his tone. For the first time, she saw the man beneath the polished exterior. Not a billionaire, but a boy who had once stared at cookies he couldn't have. For a while, they sat in silence, watching Lily. Finally, Emily whispered, I just don't want her to grow up thinking she's less because of what I can't give her. Daniel's voice was low. And I don't want her to grow up feeling like I did, believing money could fill every hole in your heart. Their eyes locked again, not in battle this time, but in something deeper, recognition, maybe even understanding. Later that night, as Emily tucked Lily into bed, her daughter asked sleepily, Mommy, is that man nice? Emily brushed curls from her forehead. I don't know yet, sweetheart. But deep inside, she knew he wasn't just a stranger anymore. He had slipped into her world, and she couldn't stop herself from wondering if he belonged there. Daniel, meanwhile, sat in his office staring at old photographs of his mother, her tired smile, her worn hands. For years, he had buried her memory under layers of wealth. Now, because of a woman and her daughter, that memory breathed again. Do you think sharing our deepest wounds makes us weaker, or does it make real connection possible? I'd love to hear your take in the comments. The following week, Daniel found himself at the playground again. He told himself it was coincidence, that he had been driving nearby, that he just wanted fresh air, but he knew the truth. Something kept pulling him back to that small bench, to the sound of a child's laughter that softened the weight in his chest. Emily noticed him before Lily did. Her first instinct was to bristle, to push him away. But Lily spotted him seconds later, squealing, It's the man from the car. She ran over, curls bouncing, and before Emily could stop her, Lily wrapped tiny arms around Daniel's leg. Daniel froze, startled. Then he crouched down, smiling nervously. Hello again. Emily's lips pressed tight, but Lily beamed. Mommy, can he push me on the swings? Emily hesitated, torn. Every muscle screamed to say no. But when she looked at Daniel's face, hesitant, almost boyish in his uncertainty, something in her softened. One push, she said firmly. Minutes later, Daniel was behind the swing, gently pushing Lily higher and higher. Her giggles rang out like bells. Emily stood nearby, arms crossed, watching. He caught Emily's eye once, an unspoken question there. She gave a small, reluctant nod. Lily shouted, higher. Daniel laughed, a sound he hardly recognized as his own, warm and unguarded. For the first time in years, he felt something pure, uncalculated. When Lily finally tired, she hopped down and dashed off toward the slide. Daniel sat beside Emily on the bench, damp from the playground's old paint. For a long moment, they simply watched Lily play. She likes you, Emily admitted quietly, surprising herself. Daniel glanced at her. I like her too. The words were simple, but something in his voice made Emily's chest tighten. A week later, Emily and Lily were leaving the diner where Emily worked when Daniel appeared again. This time, he wasn't in a sleek suit, just jeans and a dark sweater. He looked ordinary, human. Do you two like pancakes? He asked awkwardly. Lily's eyes widened. Yes. Emily narrowed her gaze. Why? There's a little place downtown. Best pancakes I've ever had, he said with a shrug. Thought you might want to try it. My treat. Emily started to refuse, but Lily tugged her hand, pleading. Please, Mommy. Something in Emily's resolve cracked. She sighed. Fine. Just pancakes. That's it. The diner was small, cozy, nothing like the gilded halls Daniel usually dined in. The smell of butter and syrup filled the air, and Lily's delighted chatter made the booth feel like home. Daniel listened more than he spoke. He learned Lily loved drawing and wanted to be an artist. He learned Emily hated coffee, but drank it anyway to stay awake. He laughed when Emily teased the waitress like an old friend, her wit sharp despite exhaustion. At one point, Lily offered him a bite of her chocolate chip pancake. He hesitated, then accepted. The sweetness melted on his tongue, but the warmth came from the little girl's grin. Emily watched quietly, something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. As the evening ended, they stepped out into the cool night air. Daniel insisted on walking them home. At the steps of her building, Emily turned to him. I don't understand you. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? You're a billionaire. You could be anywhere, with anyone. Why are you here with us? Daniel's eyes darkened, but not with offense. With honesty. Because when I'm with you, I don't feel empty. The silence that followed was heavy. Emily's heart thudded, and she looked away quickly, whispering, "Don't say things you don't mean." But Daniel wasn't lying. Over the following days, little moments kept weaving them closer. He brought Lily a sketchbook one afternoon. Not expensive, just a simple pad and pencils. "For your art," he said. Lily squealed with joy, hugging him tightly. Emily watched, torn between gratitude and fear of dependence. Another night, when Emily's shift ran late, Daniel waited outside the diner to walk her home. They talked, really talked for the first time. She told him about college dreams abandoned when she got pregnant, about the night she decided she would raise Lily alone. He listened, not interrupting, his eyes steady and full of respect. In return, he told her about his mother, about the nights she cried when she thought he was asleep, about how he swore he'd never let money dictate his worth again, only to become enslaved by it in a different way. Emily whispered, "Maybe we're both just trying not to be our parents." Daniel gave a quiet, rueful smile. Maybe. One evening, as they sat outside her building while Lily slept upstairs, Emily found herself laughing. Really laughing. Daniel had made some self-deprecating joke about his terrible cooking skills, and the sound bubbled out of her before she could stop it. She caught herself, startled. "I don't remember the last time I laughed like that." Daniel's gaze lingered on her. "Then I'll take that as my greatest success." Something in the way he said it made her breath catch. For the first time, Emily let herself imagine, just for a second, what it would feel like to lean into him, to trust him, to not carry the weight alone. When two broken people start to find joy in each other, is it healing or dangerous if it ends? What do you think? Share your thoughts below. For a little while, life felt almost normal. Too normal. Emily found herself looking forward to Daniel's visits, to Lily's laughter when he showed up with some silly story or clumsy attempt at cooking. Even the neighbors began to whisper, "Who was the handsome man walking Emily home at night?" But normal never lasted. Emily knew that better than anyone. It began with a phone call. Emily had finished her late shift and returned home to find Lily asleep with her sketchbook open beside her. She smiled, brushing her daughter's curls aside, before her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. "Hello," she answered cautiously. A clipped, professional voice responded. "This is Olivia, Mr. Whitmore's personal assistant. I wanted to confirm your attendance at Saturday's gala. Daniel mentioned you would be accompanying him." Emily froze. "What?" "Yes, ma'am. It's a charity fundraiser. Black tie. Daniel insisted your name be added to the guest list." Emily's chest tightened. "He didn't tell me anything about this." "Well, he'll be delighted to have you there. We've arranged." Emily hung up. By the time Daniel arrived the next evening, her anger was already boiling. He appeared at her door with takeout and his usual easy smile, but Emily didn't let him step inside. "You had your assistant call me," she demanded. Daniel blinked. "What? About some gala? Some charity event? You just put my name down like I'm what? Your date?" His face shifted, confusion giving way to realization. "Emily, I was going to ask you myself. I wanted you there. With me. You don't get it." Her voice shook. "I can't show up at some rich people party like I belong. I don't belong there, Daniel. And you don't get to make decisions for me." Daniel set the food down, running a hand through his hair. "I wasn't trying to control you. I thought you want to come. To see the world I'm part of." Her eyes flashed. "The world you're part of isn't mine. I don't need your invitations or your spotlights. I just need someone who respects me enough to ask." His chest ached. "I do respect you. Then why does it feel like you're trying to fix me? Like I'm some project to polish until I fit into your life?" The words hit him harder than she knew. He opened his mouth to argue, but then shut it. Because hadn't he thought, secretly, that he could help her? That he could ease her struggles, smooth her path? Maybe she was right. The argument escalated, words sharper than either intended. "You don't understand what it's like to walk into a room and feel everyone's eyes on you, judging you for the clothes you wear, the job you work, the life you can't hide," Emily said bitterly. Daniel's voice rose. "And you don't understand what it's like to walk into a room and know they're only looking because of your money. Because they want something from you, not because they see you." Their eyes locked, both breathing hard. Finally, Emily whispered, "Maybe we're too different. Maybe this, whatever this is, was never supposed to happen. The silence that followed was deafening. Lily stirred in her sleep, and Emily's anger melted into exhaustion. She opened the door wider, her voice low. "Go home, Daniel." He stood there, rain beginning to fall outside, his heart breaking in a way he hadn't expected it could anymore. "Emily, please." He nodded, jaw tight, and stepped back into the storm. That night, Emily sat by Lily's bed, stroking her daughter's hair as silent tears slipped down her cheeks. "I can't let her get attached. I can't let myself get attached." In his penthouse across the city, Daniel poured a drink he didn't touch. He stared at the skyline, her words echoing. "You're trying to fix me." Maybe she was right. Maybe he didn't know how to love someone without trying to save them. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the sharp edge of loneliness. Not the quiet emptiness he had lived with for so long, but the kind that comes after tasting connection and losing it. Days passed. Daniel didn't return to the playground. Emily didn't expect him to, but both felt the absence like a missing heartbeat. Have you ever pushed someone away out of fear they'd change you, or that you weren't enough for them? Share your story in the comments. The silence stretched into days that felt like weeks. Emily threw herself into work, covering shifts until her feet ached. At home, she hid her heartache behind a tired smile for Lily. But every time her daughter asked, "Is he coming back?" a knife twisted deeper inside her. She wanted to tell Lily the truth, that she wasn't sure, that people like Daniel didn't stay, that men with money and options didn't choose women like her. But she couldn't crush her daughter's fragile hope, so she changed the subject and carried the weight alone. Meanwhile, Daniel kept busy with board meetings, charity projects, endless phone calls. On the surface, he was the polished billionaire again. But inside, he was unraveling. He thought of Emily every time he passed a corner store, every time he saw a mother holding her child's hand. He thought of Lily's laughter when she flew on the swings. He thought of the way Emily's laughter had surprised even her. Most of all, he thought of her words, "You're trying to fix me." He poured himself into solitude, trying to decide whether to reach out or let her go. One night, Daniel sat alone in his mother's old kitchen, the one room of his estate he had never remodeled. He held an old photograph in his hands, his mother smiling faintly, arm wrapped around a boy with dark eyes and empty pockets. He whispered into the silence, "I don't want to fix her. I just don't want her to fight alone." The words broke something open inside him. Across the city, Emily sat on the edge of her bed after Lily had fallen asleep. She stared at the ceiling, replaying their fight over and over. Was she right to push him away, or had she done it out of fear? Her pride told her to stay silent, to prove she didn't need him. But her heart whispered differently. She remembered his honesty, the pain in his eyes when he spoke of his mother. She remembered the way Lily had smiled at him, unafraid. "Maybe I was too harsh," she murmured to the dark. But the question lingered. Was he here for me, or for the image of saving someone like me? Days passed until the universe, or perhaps fate, forced their hands. It was Saturday, the night of the gala. Emily was leaving the diner when she saw black cars lined up outside the hotel across the street. Cameras flashed, elegant guests in gowns and tuxedos stepping onto red carpets. And then she saw him, Daniel, tall, handsome, every inch the billionaire in his tailored suit, smiling for the cameras, shaking hands with senators and CEOs. Emily's chest tightened. That's his world. I was never meant to be part of it. She turned away quickly, pulling her coat tighter, but the ache in her chest wouldn't ease. Inside the gala, Daniel smiled on cue, but every laugh felt hollow. Every glass of champagne tasted like ash. He kept glancing toward the entrance, half hoping, half fearing she might appear. But she didn't. At the first chance, he slipped away, loosening his tie as he stepped into the night. The cameras didn't follow him this time. Meanwhile, Emily walked home slowly, rain threatening overhead. She paused under a flickering streetlight, torn between two voices in her head. Don't need him. Don't risk it. But what if you're wrong? What if he's not like the rest? Her phone buzzed. A text. It was from an unknown number. I'm sorry. For everything. But most of all, for making you feel like you weren't enough. You are. More than enough. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled. For the first time in years, Emily felt the walls around her heart crack. Daniel stood blocks away, staring at his phone, waiting. He had finally sent the words he was terrified to say out loud. He told himself it didn't matter if she responded. But every second of silence was agony. Then his phone buzzed. Her reply, "Come by tomorrow. We need to talk." Daniel exhaled sharply, a rush of relief and fear all at once. Tomorrow could be everything, or nothing. That night, neither of them slept. Emily lay awake listening to Lily's soft breathing, wondering if she was making a mistake. Daniel paced the length of his penthouse, rehearsing words he might never find the courage to speak. They were both standing at the edge of choice. Pride or vulnerability. Silence or truth. Alone or together. Tomorrow would decide it. If you were Emily, would you let Daniel back in after the hurt, or close the door for good? Comment below with what your heart would choose. Morning sunlight streamed weakly through Emily's curtains, dust motes swirling like restless thoughts. She stood at the window, arms folded, heart pounding in her chest. She'd barely slept. Every instinct told her to brace herself, to expect disappointment. Yet another part of her, the part that had laughed with him, shared pancakes with him, and watched him push Lily on the swings, hoped for something different. At precisely 10 o'clock, there was a knock on her door. Emily's pulse leapt. Lily, already dressed and excited, darted toward the door. "It's him, Mommy." "Slow down," Emily said, though her own voice trembled. She smoothed Lily's curls, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Daniel stood there, not in a tailored suit, not in the armor of wealth. Just jeans, a plain shirt, and a bouquet of wildflowers. Imperfect, mismatched, real. "Hi," he said quietly. Emily's throat tightened. "Hi." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. All the fights, the silence, the pride, it lingered between them, thick and heavy. Finally, Daniel spoke. "I owe you an apology. Not the kind you brush off, but the kind that admits I was wrong. I thought I could make things easier for you, but in doing that, I didn't see you. Not really. I treated you like someone to rescue, not someone to respect." Emily blinked, surprised by the rawness in his words. He continued, voice low but steady. "You don't need saving, Emily. You've been saving yourself and your daughter every single day. I wanted to be part of that fight. Not to fix you, but to walk beside you." Her eyes burned with unshed tears. She wanted to believe him. She did believe him, but fear still clung stubbornly. "Why ask Daniel?" she whispered. "You could have anyone. Why a single mom with bills and baggage?" Daniel stepped closer, holding her gaze. "Because when I'm with you, I don't feel like a billionaire. I feel like a man. And when I see Lily laugh, I remember a part of myself I thought I lost forever. You're not baggage. You're the only thing that's ever felt real." Silence stretched. Emily's heart ached with the weight of choice. Then a small voice broke through. "Mommy." They both turned to see Lily, standing in the hallway clutching her sketchbook. "Can we keep him?" The innocent words shattered the tension like sunlight breaking through clouds. Daniel let out a breathless laugh, and Emily covered her mouth, half sobbing, half laughing. Kneeling down, Daniel looked Lily in the eye. "If your mom says yes, I'd like nothing more than stay." Emily's voice trembled as she answered, Maybe we could try." From that day forward, things didn't magically become perfect, but they became possible. Daniel didn't sweep Emily off to castles or shower her with diamonds. Instead, he showed up at the diner after her shifts, at the playground with Lily, at her door with takeout and tired smiles. Emily, in turn, let down her guard, little by little. She laughed more. She shared her fears, her dreams. For the first time in years, she wasn't fighting alone. And Daniel discovered something he hadn't known he was missing. Family. Not the glossy kind paraded at galas, but the messy, loud, beautiful kind built on trust and late-night conversations. Months later, Daniel invited them to his mother's old kitchen, the room he'd never changed. He cooked pancakes, disastrously flipping them until Lily giggled uncontrollably. Emily teased him mercilessly, but when she caught the tenderness in his eyes as he watched them, her laughter softened into something deeper. At the table, Daniel grew quiet, looking between the two of them. "I used to think love meant grand gestures," he admitted. "But now I know it's this. Burnt pancakes and laughter I never thought I'd hear again. I don't want to lose it." Emily reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "Then don't." In time, the whispers in Emily's neighborhood faded into acceptance. The single mom and the billionaire weren't a scandal. They were a story. A story about two broken people who found wholeness not in wealth or pride, but in choosing each other every day. And as for Lily, she grew up not remembering the cold nights of waiting for buses or the empty shelves in the store. She remembered a man who pushed her on swings, who clapped the loudest at her art shows, who told her she could be anything. On a quiet evening, as Emily tucked Lily into bed, Lily whispered, "Mommy, are we happy now?" Emily kissed her forehead. "Yes, baby, we're happy." And downstairs, when she joined Daniel on the couch, curling in his arms, she finally let herself believe it. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And that was enough. Do you believe true love can grow from the most unexpected moments, like a simple candy bar put back on a shelf? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments.